Hey, everybody, thanks for jumping on. We're going to go ahead and give you guys the 2-minute warning, and we'll go ahead and kick this thing off right up on top of the hour. So thank you. Hello, everybody, and thanks for coming back. We appreciate you guys. We got a great, exciting lineup today for you. We're going to have three great speakers, and we're going to be able to. I talked to you guys a little bit yesterday about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. That defines a veteran. That defines what a service member does when they walk in, as we say, walk in off the block and raise their right hand and they go into their basic training. And when they come out of that military, they have done extraordinary things. And guys, we're going to do the same thing for you in agriculture. You know, you're getting ready to get into that agriculture field. And we're going to talk today a little bit about county committees. We're going to talk to you about local working groups. And then we're going to finish it off with a great presentation on marketing because many farmers and ranchers know how to farm, they know how to raise great cattle, but they don't quite know how to maximize their efforts, maximize their profits, maximize their way of doing things, thinking outside the box a little bit, and able to get the biggest bang for your buck. You know, yesterday we talked about what the president and Secretary Rollins of the USDA, what their focus is, what their mission is, and that's farmers first. Amanda did a great presentation and telling you what all that's about. We talked about disaster relief. Huge, huge. You know, you get in there, and especially if you're a beginning farmer or rancher, you're at your most vulnerable point. You don't have that big savings. You're either buying your property, you're buying your equipment, you're buying your cattle, your crops, and whatnot. And so yesterday was a great opportunity to show you how to be able to help protect yourself. And then we ended up two things when you get the tax person and the tax presentation. One of them is going to be, you know, how can you maximize your deductions? You want to be able to sit there. If a deduction is there, you want to, and you can claim it. We want to make sure you claim it. The biggest takeaway there is get with a tax professional that knows how to do farming taxes. And the second thing is we want to keep you all out of jail, right? Because, you know, we don't want the IRS coming knocking on your door and stuff. I know I'm a rancher and I'm always worried about making sure that my taxes get paid. They get paid on time and whatnot. Plus, I want to make sure I can maximize all my deductions that I qualify for. So today we're going to go in and we're going to start off with a very special person. You know, the USDA offers a lot of programs, and they offer a lot of programs for veterans. One of the programs they offer is spousal employment. They try to bring in veteran spouses as well if they're qualified for the positions and whatnot. They give them some priorities and whatnot because the biggest thing is as a veteran, we travel and we hop all over the world, right? And it's difficult many times for those spouses to maintain their jobs because they're leaving. Well, you know, with modern technology and all that, it's so wonderful because our military spouses are able to continue with the job in which we benefit greatly. We benefit greatly because Cherie Moore, our next speaker, is of military spouse, but not only that, she runs the county committees, the election process and all of that all across the whole United States. So without further ado, I want to introduce my good friend, Cherie Moore. Cherie, go ahead and tell us a little bit about the program. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Richard. So today, like Richard mentioned, I'm going to be presenting on FSA county committees and FSA county committees supporting veteran farmers. Our slogan has kind of been be the link between your agricultural community and USDA, and that includes veteran farmers and any underserved group. We really want to see a well-rounded county committee. We'll go into more details about county committees and why it's important. And, you know, as an additional resource. We'll be talking pretty high level today, but there are some great resources on our website at fsa.usda.gov /elections. There's lots of fact sheets and pamphlets and things like that there that can give you a lot more information. Next slide, please. So I know Richard kind of introduced me already, but a little bit more background. My name is Cherie Moore. I currently work at the FSA National Office under the Deputy Administrator for Field Operations, and I am the County Committee Subject Matter Expert. I provide support for the 50 states that are supporting over the 2,000 counties through the election and the election process. I started with the agency actually as a program technician. Now they're called program analysts. So actually helping farmers at the county level, working with them, you know, to fill out their program applications, explain programs, make sure they have all their paperwork in line, and also worked really closely with county committees. From there, I promoted to the state office in North Dakota, and I worked under admin. And now I'm at the national office and currently stationed in Albuquerque, New Mexico with my husband. I'm expecting that we'll be getting orders soon, just don't know to where yet. So we'll be moving on to our next adventure very soon. Next slide, please. So I'll start with what is the Farm Service Agency. The Farm Service Agency is part of the United States Department of Agriculture, so one of the many agencies under the umbrella. We administer farm programs for loans, disaster assistance, conservation, price support, and more. We help agricultural producers strengthen operations and manage risks. We maintain a strong local presence throughout county office service centers nationwide. And we serve as a trusted partner for producers navigating USDA programs and policies. And we provide the opportunity for local producers to serve on the county committee. That piece is very, very important. The FSA is really a very strange structure or unique structure, I guess, when it comes to the government. We are set up with committees that are made up of local farmers that are elected and nominated by their peers to kind of tie all of this together and manage all of the things that goes through the office. There's really not a payment that goes out the office or a decision that's made on a producer application that the county committee doesn't touch. And that's in regulations, that's required by law. The county committee to be there and make those local decisions. So we're always looking for that support of all of our producers and just encourage veteran farmers to participate, veteran and beginning farmers. That is a group that we do see a little bit less participation. Of course, there are less veteran farmers and there's less beginning farmers than a traditional producer. However, even percentage wise, we just don't get the same type of participation. So we do want that well-rounded committee that understands and has a little bit of background on all different walks of life, different farming practices, and just different ideas. Next slide, please. How FSA supports veteran farmers. I'm not going to go into any of the program things because I am the county committee expert, but just at a high level, veterans may qualify for additional assistance as part of an underserved group. There's specialized farm programs available, provides information and tools to support veterans transition into farming, and FSA offices are available nationwide to provide in-person support. Again, I mentioned we have like 2,000 offices. There's likely an office very nearby you where you can step in, talk to the technicians, talk to the county executive directors. They're more than happy to answer your questions. They'll take the time with you. Coming from the county myself, we appreciate our farmers, we appreciate the questions, and it's just a different type of customer service in compared to any job that I've ever worked in. And it really, we do appreciate the farmers and enjoy working with them. It's been the best group of customers I've ever had to work with, and really being at the national level, that is something I truly miss. And then of course, every FSA office is under the oversight of local producers elected to the county committee, and that can include any sort of veteran farmers as well. Next slide, please. A brief history on the county committees. So how they were established is they were created under the Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1933 to involve local farmers in administering FSA programs by ensuring policies were fairly applied and reflected at the local agricultural level during the Great Depression. A little bit more background of that is during World War I, production really had to amp up so that we could support the increased need during the war. Many farmers did take out additional loans to purchase additional land and equipment and things like that. And they were able to supply the food and needs during that time. However, when the war ended, there was still a lot of debts out there that farmers were trying to pay off. So production kind of continued at the pre-war levels, with the intent of being able to pay off the debts that the farmers had. Of course, we didn't need that level of food. There was also financial struggles around, so it resulted in overproduction. The overproduction resulted in prices tanking. As prices tanked, farmers began producing more and more to try to recoup their losses. And ultimately, we were at the risk of our national food security just really tanking, all of our farmers going under. On the other side, we also had the Dust Bowl going, where there was extreme drought conditions and not food available. So we had various issues going on nationwide and risking almost every farmer going under. That's when the first farm programs were established. But since the needs were so different throughout the nation, it was hard to determine where that aid should go. So the determination was that there would be local committees that would identify the needs of their communities and distribute the aids to the people for the reasons that they need them, whether it be drought or for the overproduction issues that we had. Today, county committees serve a similar role, probably more regulations and guidelines in place than there were in 1933, but we still have our county committees presence to ensure that FSA programs are delivered in a fairly and effective way by incorporating that local knowledge and input into program decisions. Farming is very different for sure from state to state, but often even county to county, and even within a county, there can be so many variations, whether it's the type of production that's being produced or the challenges. One area of the county is extremely wet, the other area of the county is extremely dry, and different programs may be more relevant in one area that aren't in another. And that's part of what the county committee can help us establish and identify. Next slide, please. So what is FSA COCs and what is their role? The COC is a group of local agricultural producers who are elected by their peers. So you're nominated and elected by local farmers. You can also nominate yourself, and that would put your name on the ballot. They advise FSA on how programs are administered on a local level. They help ensure decisions reflect the needs of the local area producers. They review and approve program applications, assist with county outreach, and hear appeals. They meet regularly with FSA staff and provide operational oversight, and they participate in the selection process of the county executive director. That's also a very cool and unique thing to our agency is our county committee members actually hire the executive director. Not every county committee will have the option to do this. Of course, if we already have an onboard director, they do retain their position. However, as a county committee member, you're also providing their performance evaluations. So you can make sure that things within your county are meeting the needs of the producers, and you provide that performance evaluation of that county executive director to be sure that things are going the direction that you would like them to see in your county. kind of popping back up here to review and approve program applications consist with county outreach and hear appeals. I know there's an intimidation aspect to that where some, especially new farmers, new and beginning farmers, and even some of our farmers that have been around long term, they'll say, I just go into the office, they tell me where to sign, they give me all the details I need to know, they call with the reminders. I don't know a lot of the details how it works, but I trust the staff. I don't think I have the expertise. You don't need to be an expert. We always have a couple seasoned county committee members on. It goes in a rotation. The county executive director, the district director, they're all there to assist you. You're not making any decisions without the policy being presented to you right then and there of what the guidelines are. You'll discuss it amongst the other county committee members with the county executive director there as well. And you kind of come to a conclusion. So a majority of decisions are made on consensus voting because you have the opportunity to share your perspectives and share your ideas before you actually vote on it and discuss as a group before those decisions are made. So you're not going to have to interpret legal jargon to figure out exactly, what's within your authority. Those things will be something that you have the opportunity to discuss. And all of FSA policy is really broken down into more layman's terms, not as hard to interpret as, maybe government regulations are, to assist with some of those decision-making processes. Next slide, please. So the county committee structure, each FSA office is required to have a COC. Like I mentioned, there's really not a payment that goes out the door or a decision that is made that the county committee doesn't have some sort of eyes on or at least awareness of. Each COC is made up of 3 or more elected members. We've got some multi-county offices, but often we'll have single county offices. It can depend on the size of that county. The county committee will determine, how many LAAs is what we call them. So each member will represent an LAA within the county or multi-county jurisdiction. An LAA, think of it like a voting district. Committee members serve a 3-year term, and elections are held annually with at least 1 seat up for election each year. So that's part of a process that the county committee determines too, of what works best. You may consider different farming practices, types of crop grow and different operations within determining how those LAA boundaries should be drawn to obtain the best representation. An example that I can give on how LAAs could impact the outcome of structure of county committees is Native American lands. We often try to draw Native American lands out into their own LAA, and that ensures that the tribe has tribal representation on our county committees. We can't draw veterans out into an LAA. So again, it takes we can provide the outreach and give you the information. But again, I would just really encourage you to participate, nominate yourself, give it a chance. Most of the county committee members really enjoy it. It's a close relationship with the office, a close working relationship with the office. The county executive directors, who are the managers of the office, they appreciate you. And I know when I was in the county office, I always knew when the county committee was coming that we were having donuts that day, because our county committees always brought us some snacks, which was great too. Next slide. Why COC representation matters. Decisions made by the county committees affect how programs are applied in your area. Input from local producers improves how programs are tailored to the local farming conditions. It promotes support of underserved groups such as veterans, beginning farmers, and others who need a seat at the table. Being involved helps build an understanding of programs available. And it also just gives you that opportunity to engage with other producers in your area. I won't go a lot into this, but the county committee is also under a state committee that's at the state level. And those state level committees are appointed by the Secretary of Agriculture, and they have a direct line to the deputy administrator and to the administrator. And so if there are any concerns as far as programs or practices or things that are going on, county committees have that strong connection to agency leadership to make recommendations for what would, what types of things could work better, or what types of needs you all have. There's a lot that can be put in a handbook or in a policy book, but that doesn't replace what hands-on knowledge of being out in the field 12 hours a day can share. So it's really, really important. Next slide, please. Who is eligible to serve on the county committee? To be eligible to serve, you do need to be a producer with an interest in the farming or ranching operation. We define a producer as an owner, operator, landowner, sharecrop holder who shares in the risk or would share in the risk if a crop were produced. So kind of that risk of we want the person that's actively engaged in farming, that's actually out there planting the crops, and would be at risk if we have a failed crop or if there are any challenges. Participate or cooperate in FSA programs. I always like to highlight the cooperate piece, because some people say, well, I'm brand new, I haven't even applied for a program yet, I don't have the expertise. Cooperate means that you're in connection with the office, you've provided the information they need to know to show that you meet that definition of a producer, and then you could potentially qualify for a program down the road, even if there's not a program that works for you at the current time. Be a U.S. citizen, be of legal voting age, meet the basic eligibility requirements, and reside in the county or multi-county jurisdiction in which you'll be serving. Again, the LAAs, usually one LAA is up for election, so we'll target just one of those LAAs each year, or sometimes two if you have more than 3 LAAs in your county. And that's the time that you would be eligible, is within the LAA you're in. If you don't know which LAA you're in and you've been connected with the office, reach out to your county office. They can give you a hand with that. Often it's going to be in the LAA you reside, or in the LAA where your farm is most significant. Next slide, please. Sorry about that. How to get involved. Vote in your local county committee elections. Nominate yourself or another eligible producer, any producer you think would be great for serving the local producers. Serve if you're elected. You will serve a 3-year term, and contact your county office to learn more ways to participate. Now, for this year, the nomination period did actually end on August 1st. However, we will be doing our mailing of, it's over 1 million ballots each year that are mailed out. If you're in one of those LAAs that's up for election, you'll be receiving a ballot, and there is still an option to be a write-in vote. Most commonly, the write-ins probably don't meet the beat the person whose name is printed on the ballot, but I have seen it happen before. It actually has happened, which was also awesome to see. But it still gives you the opportunity to serve as an alternate. All you need to be eligible as an alternate is 1 vote, and so your own vote would count for that. And as an alternate member, what that would mean is if the county committee is lacking a quorum, because all decisions have to be made by a majority vote, or somebody resigns or withdraws from their position, maybe it becomes deceased, or in worst case, which also doesn't happen often, is removed, you would just step into their role and take over for them. You do always have the option to step in and watch an organizational meeting. There's 2 types of meetings, but the organizational meeting is open to the public. The executive meeting is closed session because there are more sensitive things that could be discussed. But if you just want to see what the county committees are about or how they function, I encourage you to reach out to your office too and just ask if you can sit in on an organizational meeting. Next slide, please. Why veteran producers should consider serving. Veterans are an underserved population. Your leadership experience and service mindset are a great asset to the farmers and ranchers in your area. It provides you an opportunity to influence decisions affecting funding, outreach, and program access. It allows you to assist fellow veterans and underserved producers navigate FSA resources, and no prior experience outside of being a producer in the community is required. Next slide, please. What COC service looks like. So we talked about this a little bit, but you'll employ the county executive director, attend regular scheduled meetings. It's not a significant time commitment. Usually most offices have monthly meetings. In some instances, we've got limited service offices, or maybe at a time where there's not a lot of program applications going through, it could be moved to quarterly meetings. In some instances, there may be action between meetings, like a disaster program rolls out unexpectedly and we want to get funds out the door as soon as possible. They may do like a virtual meeting or something like that. But even the action between meetings are pretty rare to happen. Most consistently, we kind of see that monthly schedule, and most offices set them up on a consistent date, like the second Tuesday of the month, or always on the 15th. Most commonly, they'll pick a date so that it's not falling on a weekend where they have to adjust. You'll review program applications and policy guidance, work with FSA offices to engage producers in your area, collaborate with FSA staff to improve the delivery of service, and share updates and provide support to your farming community. Next slide, please. So some final takeaways. FSA programs are here to help you succeed in agriculture. You can get involved by voting, nominating, and serving. County committees are an important part of how programs are implemented at a local level, and your experience and participation can make a real difference in your community. Next slide, please. I included this just as a general timeline. We follow the same timeline for our elections each year. The nomination period typically opens June 15th. This year it was on a weekend, so it was moved to the 16th, and it's open till August 1st. So nominations are accepted until that time. Our ballot mailing starts on November 3rd. So that's when we send the ballots out. December 1st is the final date to return your vote. So if you are considering being an alternate, just watch for that in the mail and be sure to get that vote returned or nomination, your vote returned by December 1st, including yourself as a write-in. And then January 1st, the new member takes office. And again, it will be one new member along with a couple of seasoned county committees who maybe went through a year or two serving on the committee. You can serve more than one term, so up to 3 terms or 9 years. So in some instances, you may have a very experienced county committee member on your board as well. Next slide, please. So if you needed any additional resources for participating in county committees, you can always contact your local county office. I included the link here to farmers.gov. There's a lot of program resources on farmers.gov as well. But the one thing I wanted to highlight here is there's the Service Center Locator tool. So you can use that to see if there's any county office near you. We do have nationwide customer service, so you can walk into any county office anywhere and they should be able to assist you with your questions and take that time with you. You can make appointments. They'll be very flexible too. If accessibility is a challenge or travel is a challenge, you can always set up something similar to this, like a Teams meeting, or they can set up time with you by phone. You can call the office, walk into the office. There'll be people there to help you. Also, you can visit the county committee election website, which I highlighted in the beginning of this slide too. And there's lots of good resources on there. Some fact sheets that go a lot more into depth of kind of what the county committee does, how to vote, how to nominate, and just the copies of the nomination forms, the dates, the deadlines, just a lot more information that you can browse through on your spare time. Next slide. That concludes my presentation. I think I've still got a few minutes for questions if we have any. So do we have any?
Okay, listen, Cherie, thank you so much. It was great. Great presentation. Guys, this is an opportunity for you all to get involved. And the first time you walk into an American Legion meeting or a VFW meeting, you always find the back corner seat, right? You sit down there, but what do? You sit there and you absorb, you observe, you see how it's run, what's going on, and your mind is just spinning. You're thinking you can contribute all of this information and whatnot. And eventually you start feeling comfortable. And it's the same thing with these county committees. It's the same thing. See if you can't go and to the organizational meetings and just sit down and observe. Just sit down and listen and see, because it's a very, very important business. If you're in agriculture, if you're involved with the Farm Service Agency, again, getting that farm number is the start of it all. Even though you haven't participated in a program, you may be learning more and more, but you're going to see how this county committee helps organize what goes on the program side of the Farm Service Agency. And there were a lot of questions, Cherie. They all got answered pretty quick. Some of them, one of the questions was, is it a paid position? Is it full time? I'll let you answer that one out to the public.
Thank you. I actually did mean to include that into my slides, so I'm glad that was asked. You do get a stipend for your time. So it's comparable to GS5 pay for any time that you're working with the committee. Often, one time a month is the dedicated commitment. Occasionally, offices will maybe look for additional resources, additional support, whether it's for outreach purposes, maybe finding people to serve, or things outside of the county committee meetings, but that's really going to be based on your schedule and your availability and what you can support. We typically do need that monthly participation, just because decisions need to be made by a quorum, meaning more than half. In a 3-person committee, it can proceed with 2 of the members present. But if we have, somebody consistently missing meetings, that again impacts the payments going out to producers and the timeliness of those producers. So we do ask that you try and dedicate that time. Things happen, and of course it doesn't always work, and reschedules can happen too. The office will work with you as long as they know in advance. Those meetings can be moved and adjusted to work around you. Thank you.
Okay, great, great. One more question I have for you. Person wants to sign up for the county committee, and how would they go about finding the donuts? I mean, does every county committee meeting bring the donuts? Because I may try to sign up, just for the donuts.
That's not a requirement. So
Okay.
we just had really great and I actually worked in 2 different offices, and both were really great. We'd plan our office potlucks and things like that when our county committee was in, just to have time with them. So it was a great working relationship. We really, really appreciated them.
Well, Cherie, we definitely appreciate what you brought out there, guys. It's an opportunity for you to become active in your county agriculture component. It's an opportunity for you to grow and make a difference every day to these farmers and ranchers, because those payments come across your table, and you guys put your signature on them and stuff. So it makes a big difference. Cherie, again, thank you again. And we're going to go ahead and jump into our next presenter. We have, so that's the Farm Service Agency side of the house, with their local committees that bring actual farmers and ranchers within that community, within that county, to make important decisions. And then the NRCS has their local working group. And I'll tell you, it's a big deal, this local working group, because they get EQIP funding. And that local working group works together to decide what's going to be the emphasis on the money allocations for a lot. And in the county I live in, okay, it's farming and it's ranching. And so when we have that local working group and they meet, man, you get the farmers and you get the ranchers there, and they're all bucking for seats on the table there, because they want to be able to say, hey, we need more emphasis on ranching and cross fencing and whatnot, on getting rid of a lot of these invasive plants and stuff. And the farmers are saying, hey, we need some of that money and EQIP to try to help us with irrigation and conservation services and whatnot. So it's a big deal. And it's a pleasure to introduce another strong veteran, another friend, someone that works with this every day. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you guys to Thomas Kavasa. Thomas, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and take it from here, sir.
Oh, thanks. Great introduction, Rick. I appreciate it. How do I sound? Pretty good?
You sound great.
Okay. So good afternoon. My name is Tom Kilbasa. I am a public affairs specialist for the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, and I'm based in Bangor, Maine. I started out active duty Army. I served almost 23 years between different Army and Air Force components before retiring from the Air National Guard in 2015. So I really appreciate your time today, and thank you for taking an interest in agriculture, farming, and ranching. I'll take a few minutes to talk about a very important part of agriculture in America right now, and that's how you can have a voice to help decide how federal funds for conservation efforts are prioritized in your communities. And this is through locally led conservation. Some of you may already be familiar with the information in this presentation if you've had any exposure to ranching or farming. So I may just be offering you a refresher on USDA resource conservation efforts. Next slide, please, Janet. So locally led conservation is based on the principle that community stakeholders are best suited to identify and resolve local natural resource problems like erosion, lack of water, animal waste storage. Thus, community stakeholders, you, beginning veteran farmers, are key to successfully managing and protecting your own national resources. Slide, please. So why is this important? Why is this presentation worth 15 minutes of your time and listening to me go on about this? So two reasons. USDA has processes in place within our policies that allow the farmers, ranchers, landowners, and the general public the ability to influence conservation priorities at the county level. Basically, if you want to help decide how your federal tax dollars are spent in and around your farms, you have that right. And I'll explain how to do this in a minute. But the second reason this is important is because as beginning veteran farmers and ranchers, you are the best stewards of your own land. Farmers know that productive and healthy soil, clean water, abundant and healthy wildlife are integral to farm productivity. If you manage resources in a sustainable manner, those resources will be there in the future. And if we squander or lose those resources, you can actually decrease your farm's productivity for generations to come. Slide, please. So stop, take a minute just to look at these photos. These are Dust Bowl photos. In the 1930s, there was a combination of poor agricultural practices and severe drought in the US that led to widespread crop failure and substantial loss of ground cover in the US. This is interesting. I read one report that said about 33 million acres, that's an area covering almost the size of Florida, were completely stripped of their rich, fertile soil when the drought hit and the topsoil was swept away. It's very simple. If you don't take care of what you have, you can easily lose it. It could take anywhere from 500 to 1,000 years to create 1 inch of topsoil, and that can easily wash or blow away in a fraction of that time. Another report, this one from the University of Minnesota, states that topsoil thickness of a dime is 5 tons per acre. Since the typical thickness of topsoil on ag fields in the US can range between 6 to 12 inches, imagine how much productive soil, including minerals, nutrients, and organic matter, could be lost in a major rainstorm if your soil is left bare. Slide, please. So this is where the USDA comes in. This is why we do what we do. In 1935, President Roosevelt created the Soil Conservation Service, which later became the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS. That's my agency. The idea was that a combination of federal funding and voluntary conservation efforts from landowners, farmers, and ranchers would prevent another Dust Bowl or a similar crisis. So NRCS helps those farmers and landowners invest in their operations and local communities by providing the financial and technical assistance for a variety of conservation practices, including cover crops and crop rotation, which help with the soil erosion I mentioned on the previous slide, irrigation and watering facilities, fencing, heavy use area protection, stream bank stabilization. The list really goes on. Slide, please. Working with NARCS is voluntary. We are not a regulatory agency. but we're also usually co-located with the Farm Service Agency in most county USDA offices. And NRCS has a presence in every county. There are opportunities out there for beginning farmers and ranchers, and as military veterans, you could actually receive some additional consideration for those opportunities. They could include increased payment rates if you sign a contract for services with us, or even higher ranking in the application process when we determine which practices we're actually going to fund. If you do want to know more about NRCS, you could just easily Google USDA NRCS, or you could go to farmers.gov and click there in the conservation tab. There's a lot of information, lots of ways to contact your local office, and you can even search by state. Local working groups. So this is what Rick had mentioned, and this is where your input is important. No one knows more about a community's natural resource problems than the people who live and work in that community. And since you're veterans, I'm assuming you are used to a culture that would rather find a solution to a problem rather than just complaining about it. Everybody had that old NCO that said you can either complain about it or you can help fix it. What do you want to do? So NRCS and your local soil and water conservation districts host these annual local working group meetings throughout the state. Usually they're held in the late fall and early winter, and what they do is advise the USDA on how to best allocate the federal funds for those resource conservation efforts in the communities. And it's predominantly at the county level. Slide. Meetings are open to the public. They're mainly comprised of landowners, farmers, ag service providers who discuss which NRCS conservation practices are best suited to that local community in a given year. Each region's a little bit different, but a typical meeting might last a few hours, could be very informal, probably going to have donuts, and the end result is really going to be a set of recommendations that are elevated to the NRCS state leadership. On the right, there's a pie chart just showing an example of what the conservation priorities from one of our counties here in Maine looks like. So you can see there's quite a bit of forestry, but this will help determine the percentage of funding that is provided for each type of resource concern. Again, the data is going to vary from region to region. And if you have any questions, concerns, or opinions about how that federal conservation funding is spent in your county, this is your opportunity to be heard. Now, another way to take part in locally led conservation is through the state technical committees. It's sometimes called a state technical advisory committee, but it's really the next step up from the local working group. They're chaired by the NRCS state conservationist in each state, and these committees are composed of representatives from federal and state natural resource agencies, American Indian tribes, ag and environmental organizations, and most importantly, ag producers. The committees meet regularly, usually once or twice a year or quarterly, and they provide information, analysis, recommendations on the conservation funding and practices. Important, these are advisory in nature and open to the public. Again, each state's different, but in Maine, we hold these in person. But after the pandemic hit, we went into holding them online, found out the turnout increased. So now we have a hybrid meeting about 4 times a year. There are presentations from other ag service providers and agencies, and that actually generates a lot of constructive conversation and discussions about the current ag-related issues, like in a county, like drought, invasive species, soil health, best sustainable farming practices, avian influenza, etc. But ultimately, it's a venue to advise our state conservationists on how to best implement those resource conservation provisions of the Farm Bill. And honestly, these can be a bit of an alphabet soup with all the agency acronyms, but I think we're fairly good at with USDA trying to explain everything, keep it understandable and practical, but as veterans, I'm sure you're used to the acronyms. Now, another opportunity for you to get involved in conservation efforts in your area is through the local conservation district. There are about 3,000 conservation districts, nearly one in every county in the US, that work directly with landowners and farmers to promote healthy soils, water, forests, and wildlife. Some states, they might refer to them as soil conservation or resource conservation districts. but many of them are just called soil and water conservation districts. Regardless, their mission is the same, and that's to coordinate assistance from all available sources, public and private, local, state, and federal, to develop locally driven solutions to natural resource concerns. These districts, they're subdivisions of state government, but like with NRCS, we work really closely with our conservation districts. They're actually some of our strongest partners in the conservation work. And if you want to find out who's really plugged into your local farming or ranching community, stop in and talk to the staff at your local district office. We often share space with the districts. They have district boards of supervisors made up of local volunteers that set the conservation priorities in the district. Meetings are open to the public. Their boards may appreciate some new participation from people like you who are really passionate about farming and conservation. So just to summarize, we've talked about some of the different options out there through USDA if you're interested in participating in locally led conservation. But these aren't the only options. There are nonprofit organizations, state agencies, even your local cooperative extensions that they might offer opportunities to identify and resolve these resource problems in your communities. The bottom line really from all this is that as military veterans, you have those skills that are applicable to helping resource conservation efforts in your own communities, like leadership, teamwork, problem solving, adaptability. Those skills are going to be very welcome at any of these groups. And I encourage you to go visit resources like farmers.gov for more info. Rick, I'm sorry if I go slightly off script here, but are you okay? Is there enough time left just to read?
You're doing great. Go ahead and continue. You're doing absolutely fine. Thank you, sir.
Perfect. Thank you. So if you get anything else out of this presentation other than, you know, that guy from the USDA with the weird Polish last name really cares about resource conservation, I hope you think about your roles as stewards of the land. You are in positions to determine not only how productive your land is, but how sustainable it can be as well. So to get a little philosophical, this land was here before us. It'll be here long after we leave. The question is, how do you want to leave it? Whether you're starting a ranch that may be handed down through generations of your family, or you just want to sustainably farm a couple of acres for the next 10 to 20 years, you are still responsible for that land, that soil, that water, and that wildlife. Maybe next time you walk a fence line, see some gully erosion, or maybe you have a damaged culvert at a stream crossing. Maybe even you just want to extend your growing season out the either end. Remember, there are specialists in the USDA's Natural Resource Conservation Service that are there to assist you. It might not be with financial aid. It might be with just having one of our conservationists or engineers out walking the fields with you and offering some technical advice. And you might not even be ready now to work with USDA, to be honest. It's important you know that voluntary conservation and local engagement are core aspects of USDA's farmer first approach right now. Last thing I do is I'll quote we have a new NRCS chief, Aubrey Betancourt, and in an interview she said, quote, "We let the local resources, those closest to the problem or to the challenge, inform the solution," end quote. I like that. So you let the people who know what the problem is find the solution. And I think you are the people who know. So again, thank you for your time. Best of luck to you on your future in agriculture. And that's my presentation, Rick.
Tom, it was great. It was great. And I just love the way you talked about how these veterans, they're given the tools. I preach this every webinar. They're given the tools for success, discipline, motivation, integrity, the core values. And all of this needs to fall into the agriculture community. And the NRCS and the Farm Service Agency offers that both through these two committees, guys. This is your opportunity. And I catch myself, I say guys all the time. Amanda beats me up on it. She says, it's not sexist. You know, let's drop the woke stuff. I'm not sexist, but I just say guys for general terms. So anyway, guys, I want you to realize that this is your opportunity. You're going to walk into that office. You remember when they used to tell you, you know, you have that military bearing about you. You have that military bearing, that look about you. You know, you do because you went through an awful lot. The military breaks you down and builds you back up. Take all of the tools that military gave you and ingrained in you and go sit on these committees, learn, absorb it, because you're going to find out with the tools that you have, you're going to be leading these communities and you're going to be making a difference. And guess what? You just went from ordinary to extraordinary. Thomas, I can't thank you enough. I appreciate it. Thank you, my friend. Guys, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and right at let's see, it's going to be 2:30. Yeah, it's right at 2:30. We're going to go ahead and well, no, excuse me, right at 3 o'clock. Excuse me, I'm out here in New Mexico, and we're going to have an exciting presentation to close out our webinar on marketing. So let's go ahead and take a couple of minutes, and right up at uh 3 o'clock, or it would be what 5 o'clock your time. We'll go ahead and kick it off. And no, actually, it'll be 3 o'clock your time. I'm all goofed up. At 3 o'clock, we're going to go ahead and come back and resume with the program. So go ahead and take a break. Thank you. We're going to kick it back on just real shortly. So you guys start finding your seats and get comfortable. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I appreciate you. We have an exciting final hour that we're going to go through, and that's knowing your market. I want to tell you a little bit about Holly and how I first met Holly, though. Holly has a great passion for helping veterans. And there's an old saying that is, if you want to do great things, surround yourself with great people. Holly is one of those people I try to surround myself with because she's always doing great things. She was in charge of the New England Boots to Business program for veterans, doing just an incredible job. And she had the foresight and she had the gumption to sit down with two old Army veterans, Ram and myself, and help create an agricultural boots to business. And this program didn't just blossom, it didn't just bloom, but it exploded. It actually exploded. We were talking to people in England, we were talking to military service members in Germany, in the Philippines, in Guam, in Korea, and all across the United States, all 50 states, and they were involved in this program. And this program, Boots to Business Agriculture, is actually taken on across all of their VBOCs, Veteran Business Outreach Centers. And it all started because a young lady had the gumption to say, yes, we can do this. And she's a close friend because if you want to do great things, you surround yourself with great people. Holly, it's my pleasure to introduce you. I'm so grateful for you wanting to bring your marketing. I think the first time we ever met, I think I did my marketing presentation, my version of it, and it was a little bit different. I know you were surprised because everything I do is always a lot different or a little bit different, and I don't follow the norms. But you didn't kick me off the stage, so I'm grateful for that. Anyway, without further ado, I want to introduce you guys to Holly Aker. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that introduction. I am incredibly proud of the work that we have done together, and so grateful for you and your support and leadership. So thank you for this opportunity. And we are switching gears a little bit. We're talking a little bit more about business planning here in this sort of last hour that we have together. And I am incredibly grateful to talk about thinking about business and thinking about your future business and your future customer and what that might look like. So just to give you a little bit more of an introduction, as Rick said, my name is Holly Aker. I work with beginning farmers and small agricultural businesses to help them grow strategically and sustainably. We know and understand that there is a huge difference between a farm business and a brick and mortar business or a tire business or whatever it might be, and that the resources, the questions, the ideas that we need to put together around planning that business are different. But thinking about our business plan and our business model and our economic model are still really important. It's still a business. So I specialize in business planning and market research and building models that really fit the farmer and the product and the community that you serve. I've worked with the Veterans Business Outreach Center, which is a resource partner of the Small Business Administration. I've also worked with the Small Business Administration, of course, the USDA, and supported some national programs like At Ease Orchards and Veterans in Farming. There's some really great programs out there to support you as you're building and thinking about what you want your business to look like. So I do have another small company, Local Goods Gathered, which was designed to be able to support cheesemakers as they're developing their markets. And we've grown to kind of expand that into value-added producers, helping them build sort of long-term sustainable relationships with wholesale customers. So I am very passionate about navigating the best path forward for your businesses to be able to serve your community and your market, which is what we're talking about. So this presentation is really all about building your farm business with your customer and market in mind from the very start. We're going to talk about some common pitfalls, some success stories, and then walk through some practical steps to help you define your customer, understand the competition, and develop a plan that will fit your goals and really the market landscape. So during this session, my goal is to leave you with some really thoughtful questions. You might have more questions than you came in with, but some thoughtful questions and maybe some action items for you to follow up on as you begin to develop your business model, and maybe a few additional resources that can support you as you're thinking about what you want your business to look like. So whether you're in the early idea stage or you're already started or you're growing, you're looking to refine, this session is going to give you a couple of tools and some insights and hopefully a bit more clarity so that you can build your business with a lot of purpose. Next slide. So our welcome and objectives, we're focusing on one of the most important and often overlooked parts of building a farm business, and that's understanding your market. We want to do it from the start. Too often, new farmers jump in with a potential product that they love or a farm model that supports their family. Then maybe they want to scale a little bit more and bring in some different income, only to realize that maybe they don't have the exact customer base for the business that they've been planning, or they're competing in a space that would be really difficult or maybe even overly saturated. So the session is designed to help you think just a little bit differently. We're going to walk through how to identify the right market. We're going to try to paint a picture and define what your ideal customer might look like. And we're going to position your farm business in a way that will make you stand out. That's going to help us talk about sales channels and shape your operations, how competitors can help you define your business, and how strong customer relationships developed early on can build long-term success. So by the end of this, I'm telling you, there's going to be some questions, but we've got the resources. We really want to help you make the most informed decisions, build a plan with purpose, and then just market your business with confidence. So, all right, let's get started. Next slide. So here's what we don't want to do. We don't want to get it wrong. The image on the screen represents what we call a category. All the labels are taped over, but you can see it's a lot of similar items, potentially a similar style, sold in the same place. And so our question is going to be, how do we stand out? Is there room for you in that category? Is there room for your product? Are the buyers buying what you have? How do you fit in with the competition? How are we going to make you stand out? How do you build a business at the right price that the customers are willing to pay, especially if you're seeing yourself on a shelf with a whole bunch of products? We want to talk about how you're different. So some of the common missteps that can happen, starting with, is there room for your product? There are absolutely oversaturated markets, too many of the same items in one category, which leads to very fierce competition, making it difficult to stand out. I've seen farmers really excited about products, microgreens, salsa, hot sauce, mushrooms, proteins, only to realize that the particular market that they're exploring is already pretty busy. It's pretty full. There's already some local sellers and some options at multiple at one market is not uncommon. So without a clear differentiator, it becomes kind of a race to the bottom, right? So who's going to sell it for the lowest price? And as a small new business, that's really hard for you. Can you compete? What kind of margins do you need to be able to sustain your business or to even think about growing? It's completely fine to look at something, to have an idea and think, this is what I want to be growing, this is what I want to be doing, or this is the product I want to create. There's a lot on the market. That's totally fine. We just want to make sure that we understand where your customers might be, um, who they might be, how can we reach them, and how can we make you stand out when there's a whole bunch of competition. So we just need to figure out how we can get your product to connect a little bit further with your customer. Also, many enter new markets or create a product and they don't quite have a solid financial or logistical plan. These are things that we want to think about before we start. They may assume that restaurants are out there and there's customers everywhere, right? Restaurants are going to buy my product, wholesale accounts are available. I'm gonna set this product up here, and they haven't really factored in sort of what that cost might look like. Is there delivery costs? What does it look like with your schedule? Are there volume requirements that you need to meet? And others, you sometimes might base your pricing on something that's a little bit more aspirational rather than the actual cost of goods, and what customers' expectations are and what competitors are charging. So thinking about those things from the very start of where is there room for your product in the market, at what price, how can you get into that sort of area? I had asked a producer one time about their honey. They were selling honey, and I said, "Well, how did you set the price? How did you know, for where you were selling it, what you were going to do?" And they said, "Well, that's what others were charging at the market." And that does make sense when looking at the competition that they know it. But I asked, "Well, how many hives do they have? And what's the cost of their packaging? And is maybe do they have a bigger kind of group of products that are available, and maybe this is one with a lower margin?" So you really need to think about your business and your business model and what's going to work for you, and what you need to do and to kind of separate yourself from the rest of the competition, even if that's at a much higher price. So, and then finally, there's just kind of this belief that customers are going to switch just because your product is really good, or maybe it's because it's new, or because it's local, or maybe it's free range or organic, or some of these little buzzwords. But buying habits can be really sticky. Chefs have a lot of loyalty to the people they've been supporting. Customer relationships exist already. The same sort of things you want to be doing are the same things that people have already done. And so kind of building those relationships can be harder than it kind of looks. So distributors already have accounts, and consumers they're buying the same stuff they've been buying for a long time. So again, that's okay. We just want to make sure that we have a clear incentive. We've thought through who our customer is and how are we going to get them to change over to our products from the very beginning. So these aren't just minor hiccups. They're often reasons that a lot of great farm ideas struggle to kind of take off, or they stall. And it's really essential that we look at these pitfalls for establishing your farm business, from the very beginning, so we know what resonates with your customer, what will fit into the existing ecosystem, and adapt to the realities of the industry. So saying all of this, just because you have competition doesn't mean it's not a great place to enter the market. It shows us that there is real demand, and that is something that we can celebrate. So what we need to consider is how we build our path and differentiate ourselves to our buyers before we have products or a crop that we just can't sell. Next slide. So now we can contrast the last slide with all the pitfalls with what it looks like when we actually get it right. So successful farms often grow organically, naturally, not in a trendy way, not based on a hit item, but in a truly demand-driven way. They start small, they pay attention, they listen to what customers are asking for, and they build their business and they grow with purpose. The farms, they don't make assumptions, they test ideas, they ask questions, they notice what's missing in the market, what buyers are struggling to source or what customers consistently request, and they build around that gap. They also invest early in those relationships, whether it's building trust with a local CSA base or developing sort of a consistent communication pattern with wholesale buyers or distributors, or even partnering with other local distributors or other local farms. You're not selling to the void. You are co-creating with your customers, and they know who their customer is. So most importantly, they don't have a product, they have what we would like to call a value proposition. You can clearly articulate why someone should buy from you. It could be reliability, it could be transparency, definitely could be flavor, something really exciting, your origin story, your story of how you got to where you are, could just be all of the above. But it's definitely rooted in what matters to the actual customer. You have an idea of who that customer is and what matters to them. That way you can build that relationship. That's the difference. These farms are building businesses based on evidence-based need and serving an evidence-based customer base. It's not about guessing what might work or getting excited about something. It's about understanding what does work and then leaning into it. Next slide. So what does it look like defining your target market? This is one of the most important questions in your farm business. Who are you actually selling to? Not just in theory, but in practice. The clearer you are about your customer, the more effective every decision becomes. What you grow, how you set your price, where you go to market, what is your brand voice and your story? How are you going to build those relationships? It is different based on the customer. So a produce CSA, you're not, first of all, who's actually purchasing the product, and then that end customer is completely different from a restaurant or your farm store or the corner store or a distributor. Because that's all different, we need to start by narrowing down your target market. Are you selling to a busy parent who wants a weekly CSA that gets delivered to them, or they go to their pickup spot and they don't have to think about it and they feel like I can support local, I'm getting the products that I need, and I don't have to go anywhere else? Or maybe it's a chef who needs consistent delivery that can come every single Monday afternoon at this time. They want hyper local sourcing, and then maybe they have a story that goes with it, a story they can promote about who the farmer is and why they grew it. Or it's the small independent retail market, the farms stores that you're driving by on the road. Is the item have enough shelf life for them to buy it and hold it in the store for a couple of weeks if it doesn't sell? If they need to move it faster, do you have the ability to deliver it and get it there? Or maybe it's your neighbors. Maybe it's an on-farm store that's at the end of the road or your driveway. And so who is that customer and what are they looking for? Is it really about the story of your family or the area and being able to support you? These are opportunities for us to think about how we want our business to look and to think about where they might source their food, where they're shopping, so that we can make the best decisions for our business. Do they go to the farmer's market? Maybe it's online. Maybe it's working with an e-commerce company and it's shipping proteins across, or it's a sort of CSA delivery online. Or if it's a restaurant working with a distributor or shopping at independent grocers or big chains. This just tells us where you need to show up and how you're going to show up, which gives us our best opportunity to start thinking about what that might look like. So as we've looked at now, we had to kind of have this idea about who our customer might be. What do they value? Are they looking for something that's really price sensitive? Is it about supporting local? Is it about how you've grown your product or your production practices or your processing practices? Maybe it's convenience. It's often overlooked, but it's critical, right? Especially for working families or for restaurants that are only open a couple of days or time frames or hours, or maybe limited labor that happens now. And we've seen a lot of small retailers and restaurants that don't have the labor that they had before to cut and process products. I was saying I work in cheese. Whole wheel cheeses are much harder to sell right now because there isn't the labor to cut and process, so they want everything already produced and wrapped, right? And that takes more labor on your part. So, I don't know, a few more CSAs, they like variety, they want freshness, they want to build the connection to your farm and tell the story. So thinking about like what are they excited about and what might come in a delivery. And then we talked about like restaurants and consistency and speed and flavor. So it's really about developing who is this customer and what they need. And then thinking about how you're going to fit into that market. So if you're starting small, you might think about like, here's who's coming to the farm, here's who's driving by, here's who's shopping. This is what they're looking for. If you're already in a growth point stage and you're thinking about, well, I'm going to tell my story here and I have some products going here and some products going here, then those aren't going to be the same stories. It might not be the same packaging, might not have the same shelf life, and certainly not the same price point. So painting that picture of who all your customers are and what your target market might be is really going to help. We want to make sure that you're putting the right energy. Business owners, limited capacity, you're working 12-hour days, 7 days a week, right? Putting all of your right energy into the right place that's going to make customers for your business and, impact that bottom line. Next slide. So once we understand who our customer is, the next step is figuring out how to reach them. And that means choosing the right sales channels. So the sales channels we're talking about could be that retailer, that restaurant, that e-commerce, the farm stand, direct to consumer at the farm or at the farmer's market. Where are your customers? Because different sales channels come with different expectations and they have different margins. You have different logistics about how you get your product where it needs to be. And you certainly have different relationships that are there. Those customers all require different amounts of relationship. So they also ask for different amounts of time and commitment from you that really needs to be factored in to the viability of the product and the cost. It is always exciting when someone places a huge order and then you realize that that order is actually going to require you to spend 2 days, packaging, and then you're driving it 6 hours and then driving it back 6 hours. And, we got to put that in and factor that into the viability of what our business model looks like. So farmers markets allow for face-to-face interaction. You can really build your brand. People get to see you and meet you. They give you real-time feedback on what works, what they're looking for, which is great, but they require weekly consistent presence. They require those early leave at 3 a.m., get to the farmer's market to be set up by 5, displays. They take time for customer service. There's a lot that goes into that. And so we want to make sure that if that's the sales channel where your customer is at, we're taking these things into consideration. And you get to charge direct to consumer pricing. So maybe that's a part of the balance, that all of that in your business model, you can build that in because that's the pricing structure that you want to have. However, wholesale customers offer significantly more volume, potentially reoccurring orders that provide a lot of consistency, and you don't have to keep going in and doing that work week to week. They love it. They know it. It's consistent. It's great. They love you. Hit an order every single time or sending you that email to say, I need this. But maybe the food safety protocols are different. Maybe the logistics are a little bit different. And the margins can be a little bit different, right? You have to factor in sort of all of these elements when you're thinking about what your business looks like. Online sales, I mentioned that earlier, thinking through how we can reach our customers that have a bigger reach, a bigger region. Lots of great companies now that are helping to support shipping produce, shipping proteins, so lots of great opportunities, but they involve an entirely set of different tools, right? Like e-commerce platforms, and you have order minimums and packaging and shipping, and maybe all of a sudden now you're dealing with, frozen. And so, and I can say firsthand, packages that don't arrive. So sometimes shipping regulations and things like that too. So depending on what you're thinking about for your business model, these are things that you might want to take into account. And you can be thinking too about the direct to consumer side versus the wholesale institutional markets or those business sales. Selling direct to consumer often means that customer service that we were talking about at the farmers market. It means storytelling, could mean different branding, some beautiful photos, really creating sort of an experience for your customer. Where a wholesale buyer, like a restaurant or institutional, like like a hospital or school, they're like, put it in the bucket, seal it up, and send it over, right? So it doesn't take any of that. They focus on volume. They just want to get the product where it needs to be so everyone can do their job and get it at the most competitive price. So depending on the channel that you choose where your customers are at, it's going to shape your business. It's going to decide if you need certain packaging, if it needs a label, what the label needs to include. Does it need to have shelf life testing or any food safety testing? What does that look like? An appealing design that can stand out on the shelf if that's where it's going to be. And then the pricing is a little bit different. Can the sales channel that you've chosen, that direct to consumer, the wholesale, the restaurant, can it absorb the real costs plus margin of producing the product, and your time, and what that might look like as a whole big picture when you include if you need a distributor or a broker, or there's travel, or retailers need a percentage. So if you're thinking about, what I'm thinking about for my business is I'm going to go into wholesale, this is what I want to be doing, then start thinking about some of these questions too, when you're building out that business model. And all of the sales channels, they also include different types of communication. Maybe you're doing wholesale and you're signed up on several websites that chefs can order from, and you have to keep updating your inventory. We need to be thinking about that. Or maybe we know that engagement is really high and sales are high if we're constantly emailing buyers and sending newsletters. We're telling them about new products or deliveries or sales. Again, time. Setting up our market table, doing sampling, the farmer's market, or if you're managing a website, even if you're doing on-farm pickup or people can order online, those are all sort of pieces and elements that go into the business model that you're choosing, and the sales channels that make sense for where your customer is at. So the channel is not just how you sell. It really shapes how you produce, how you package, how you market, and how you're going to grow your business. So choosing the right one is a strategic decision, and it really needs to align with where you see your customers at and what you're seeing as your business model. Next slide. So no matter what you grow or produce, this part is essential. Relationships are the foundation of a resilient farm business. Whether you are selling cheese to a store, greens to a restaurant, pork shares to families, people buy from people that they trust. And that trust is built over time through communication and reliability and a shared understanding of each other's needs. It starts by putting yourself out there. How are you putting yourself out there? Are you attending events? Are you going to food shows? You're going to conferences, to buyer meetups? You have to go where your customers and your buyers are. So we need to build that communication. Join online communities, follow listservs, make sure that you're hearing about opportunities early, and that you can gain insight from your peers or the fellow producers. And you are definitely going to have to do some cold calls or some cold emails. That's just uncomfortable at first, but reaching out directly and doing it really professionally and confidently can just open some unexpected doors. Even if it's a referral to somebody else who says, "Yeah, I can't buy this right now, but I know someone who is looking for this, or someone who's thinking about expanding their operations, and this might be a good fit." So that's why we always talk about peer farmers, because some of the strongest market connections come from your community. They come from the referrals, from partnerships. Another farmer might be completely at capacity for a particular item or for a route, or sold out for the season, which happens a lot, right? And they're willing to pass you that lead, or at least share that content and that information with you to say, here's an area where there's definitely demand and I'm at my max. Maybe we can team up a little bit here. Maybe there's opportunity to say, here's where there's some demand. So helping to meet that volume. Or when you're thinking about value proposition, you're thinking about like, well, here at my farm store, I'm going to have this, this, and this is working. But maybe if I actually added, some fresh bread or pastries or cheese or, any other sort of product, that's going to help people stop more. They're going to come a lot more because it's not just, my offerings that I have to start, but it's actually a couple people locally. And so building those peer relationships and seeing how you might be able to add together can really help add to your value proposition depending on the customer and the sales channel. And also just shared purchasing, shared delivery, content on grants that are coming out. These peer relationships can really help you build and grow your business. There's definitely a lot of, I'm delivering here. I can't make it on that day. Can you drop this off? We see that a lot. A chef who maybe promotes your product on their menu, helps connect you to others. So no matter the relationship, the peer, the buyer, if you're looking at the institutional markets, there's definitely people out there that can support you. And it all really starts with that customer relationship building. They take effort, but they bring in more than the return. Then, if you placed an ad on Facebook, this is going to be stronger. So those customer relationships will build loyalty. They create repeat business and a huge web of support that will help you continue to grow sustainably. Next slide. So here we're looking at mapping ourselves in the market. And this is really important. We've talked about our customer. We're talking about how we're going to reach them. We're talking about how we're going to build relationships. But the other part of that is what's already happening in the ecosystem, what's happening in the market. And so understanding your competition is really important. It's not about copying them. It's about learning how we differentiate ourselves so that our business has the opportunity to communicate our value. And that's what we want our customers. If we're building relationships, we need to show them why we're valuable, right? So start by identifying, and this is an example, start by identifying both direct and indirect competitors. There's always a competitor, either direct or indirect, because that customer is currently buying that product from somewhere. If they're shipping it in from somewhere else, if they're buying it online, if they're driving 2 hours to a different market, they're buying it somewhere. So direct competitors, those are offering similar products to a very similar customer. So maybe it's the farm down the road, or it's the farmer's market, or it's anyone that you might share space with that's similar product, similar customer. And then indirect is more like, well, they're buying this instead. That might be the product that comes in a meal kit, or they're going to the retailer a little bit farther away, or it's just a solution that your customer could choose instead of buying that exact thing that you're looking for. So what we want to do is we want to map it out. We want to get a clear idea of where opportunity exists for us to get into the market. So we have this quadrant map, which is just, for me, is just awesome for helping me visualize. And you can put lots of things on the different sort of arrows and axes that are there. So we have price from low to high. The other might be quality, could be packaging or specialization. And then plot out your competitors. This helps you see where you're really competing head to head, or if you can carve out your own space. I think a very good example, just to visualize in your head, is eggs. You can find eggs in lots of different prices, lots of different specialties, lots of different quality, where I can get it at. And this is a good way to kind of to look at this and see as an example. So when thinking about your own business and your own products, you can do the same. I can find a dozen eggs at my local, sort of maybe not local super chain value store for $4.99. Or I can go to the farm stand that's down the road that sells direct to consumer. So right on the shelf for me to buy, and they're getting all the money back. And maybe it's, like $5. Or I can go to the specialty market and I can find these, what I like to call unique quality statements, things that say like organic or local or free range, and sort of all of these pieces, and say, okay, now I have a choice between $6.99 and $10.99, kind of depending on, and I can map those all out. So I'm going to go up in price here and up in quality, or where you think the quality is. I'm going to put a dot on each one for the products that I'm thinking about. And then I'm realistically thinking about, if I compare myself to these out here, where do I fit? Where's my product, and how maybe do I need to adjust my product, either in price, or maybe I need to highlight more of the quality, or I need to change the way the brand looks a little bit here so it tells more of a story, so that I'm perceived to sit in that really great hole there that's there right between price and quality, because that's where my customers are looking for. So you can go deeper. There's the list of the sort of 3 lenses that are there. Product, quality, and uniqueness. Is the product exceptional in taste, sustainability, packaging and design? Does it stand out? Variety, maybe it's kind of innovative in some sort of way. And then looking at that price. And I always say the price point and the perceived value, kind of think about where you want to map that out onto the map. And then brand. So we have brand and story and messaging, and what sort of values or emotions are they tapping into? Is it compelling? Are customers getting it? Maybe there's more to the brand and messaging. They're bringing their kids to the market. There's sort of this sort of connection to the family and to the farm. And these are all things that, like, we want you to look so deep at all of your competitors. You understand all of this. You can say, for every person that's selling what you want to be selling in your sales channel, here's where they are, here's where they fit, so that you can kind of figure out where we can create that space for you. And then placement, sales channels are for the competition. Are they selling direct to consumer? Are they selling through local stores? Maybe it's online marketplaces. Are they regional or national? How are they on the shelf? Is it stocked? Is it empty? These are just some thoughts that kind of map this all out for your competition. When you map out your competition clearly and honestly, you will find gaps and opportunities, places where your farm business can really shine. You might not beat everyone on every price or on every scale, but you will find a way to differentiate your story, your quality, your customer relationships, some of your innovation. And this is how you begin to strategically kind of place yourself in the market. We don't need to be everything to everyone. We just need to be the best fit for your customer. And that's what we're looking for. So on a side note to the screen and thinking about your competition, there are some really great tools that you can use and some great resources we're going to talk about at the end that can help you do some of this competitive analysis. So I encourage you to really take a look at sort of where you're thinking your customer is, where they're shopping, what that channel is, and do a good amount of research on how you're going to find and connect with them. So looking at store shelves, combing websites, pulling up all that social media, looking at subscription boxes, wherever it might be. This is what marketing and branding companies do. People pay people to do this for them, to collect all this info, but this is how they build their plan. And you need to do this too. Next slide. because this is what sets you apart. This is where it all comes together. After identifying your customer, choosing your channel, mapping out the competitive landscape, we can get clear on what sets you apart. We can ask yourself, what problem are you solving for your customer? What are they looking for? How did we create that competitive sort of hole on that quadrant? Is it convenience, reliability? Maybe it's transparency, could be flavor, ethics, your founder story, could be shelf life, or just anything entirely. You're here to solve the problem, and what that might be is where we're gonna put ourselves right there. So it might be the kind of, if there's inconsistent quality or the shelf is empty from time to time, if they go to the farmer's market and they don't have this product this week but they have it the next, those are the things that we're looking for. So once you identify the problem, your job is to make your farm the best possible solution, right? Whatever you've got, let's make it the best choice that they have. And you only know that if you know the customer, because otherwise they're looking at a shelf and they're going, well, that package looks pretty or that price looks right, and they're going for it. We want to know exactly what they're looking for and make sure that either we belong on that shelf or we belong somewhere else, and that our customer looks at the product and knows that's what's for them. So this is your value proposition. It is the core of your business model, the reason that people choose you instead of someone else. It might be your scale, it might be your growing practices, your story, your delivery options, maybe even your customer service. But it must be rooted in what your actual customer values. From there, now we can build our messaging. Now we can think about what our brand looks like. We can start to think about how are we communicating to this customer we've defined. Here's your product. Here's where you find it. Here's the market that I'm at. Here's why you need it and why it's solving that problem. We can put that into our website. We can put it on our social media. It could be on our chalkboard that's at the market. It could be on the sign that's on the farm. Whatever it needs to be, this gives us the opportunity to really communicate it everywhere you can where you're trying to reach your customer. So it's not necessarily about being, flashy or loud. It's about clarity. If you can clearly communicate how you're solving a specific problem for a specific customer, you're way ahead of other producers. That clarity is going to build trust. It's going to maintain that relationship. We're going to have loyalty. It's going to have referrals coming your way, and it allows your marketing to feel really authentic and not forced. Next slide. So everything we've done so far, defining your customer, analyzing the competition, it feeds into this. We need to build a plan that's grounded in your customer's needs. I love to fish. I'm in Maine, just like the presenter before me. I live near a lake. I specifically enjoy a particular type of fishing. I like bass fishing. I feel really strongly about my pink and green rubber worm. I feel like it's my secret. It always works for me. But I'm not taking my setup and I'm not heading over to the coast hoping to use my same pole and my same bait to catch, a haddock in the ocean. I'm not doing that, right? You must have the right bait for the right water so you can catch your fish. It's the same thing here. I'm not going to the local corner store hoping to purchase, prime rib, or I'm not going into the high-end restaurant in the city expecting to pay the same price they pay at my deli. It doesn't work that way. You have to align your product and your price point with the sales channel where they're shopping for your customer that's making the purchase. We got to take all the guesswork out of, well, I'm going to charge this much for my honey, right? We want you to know why you're making the decisions that you are. You're no longer trying to be everything to everybody. You're intentionally designing your farm's offering to match the real demand. So what are we fishing for? Who's the customer? What are you growing? Are you producing that your target customer wants? Have we proven that they're out there and they're looking for it and the demand is real? Do we know what the price is? Does your price make sense for that customer? Does it still cover your costs? Does it align with the competition? Do we have the right bait? And then are we in the right pond? Are we in the right water? Are we reaching them where they already shop or where they're making their sort of purchasing decisions? So there's a lot of research that can be done that says if I want to sell high-end cuts of meat, during the holidays, well, who's my customer? Who am I looking for? Where are they shopping? How much are they spending? Who's out there spending that kind of money right now? How much are they making? Do they live in, urban areas? When are they doing their shopping? There's a lot of information out there that allows us to kind of figure out how we can reach them and really just take the guesswork out of it. It makes marketing so much easier. We don't want you shouting into the void. We want you talking directly to your customers so they can hear exactly what you're saying. This sort of intentional planning can really give you confidence in your business, gives you purpose and clarity. When your business is being built around the customer, everything works better. Marketing, logistics, day-to-day, profitability, everything works better. Next slide. So our key takeaways just are in our couple of action steps. So first, remember this, the most successful farm businesses don't start with a product that's grown. They start with who the customer is that's buying it. Everything we've talked about, defining your market, analyzing the competition, identifying the channels, it's all about understanding who you serve and to build your business with intention. Second, research is your friend. The more you observe, the more you're in the market you want to sell at, the more you ask and analyze now, the fewer costly mistakes you're going to face later. When you know your market, you're not just growing food, you're solving a real problem for a real person. You can paint that picture, you can visualize it, you can meet them and see that demand, that need is there. Next slide. So next, those action steps, define your customer, be specific, picture them, understand their values, their habits, what's important to them in their purchasing, research your competitors. You can use AI tools. You can look at market listings, walk those store aisles, observe pricing, and then clarify your value proposition. What's that problem you're trying to solve? Make sure that you're in the right sales channel. Make sure that you're reaching your customers where they're at and what they're looking for. And then let this be a part of your guide for your plan. Use the insights to shape your pricing, all of your marketing, and the growth strategy that you want to build. Because with this foundation, you're not just becoming market ready, you're setting yourself up to really grow and to thrive. Next slide. So just a few additional resources and programs that can support you. I know I'm running just over my time here. There are free resources in every state to help you identify your market, that can help you do your market research, that can help you talk through your customer base and give you some ideas to kind of get yourself and your market research flowing. I highly recommend the local universities and the extension programs. Also your economic development organizations, the local librarians, they can make referrals, of course, online. You can do some research. In addition, the U.S. Small Business Administration has great resource partners that offer no cost programming to help you build your business, to help you do your market research, including the Veterans Business Outreach Center. There are 31 locations across the country. You can meet remotely online. You can say, I just want to do market research, or I need some tools. They're available to support you in building your business. In addition, small business development centers, also you can find them online at sba.gov. So a lot of great tools, resources, free as you're starting to kind of build out your business model and plan. And as Rick mentioned also, there is the Veterans Business Outreach Center is doing a Boots to Business for beginning farmers and ranchers. This is an introduction to entrepreneurship specific to agriculture. The presentation is really, really good, but mostly you'll get to connect with your peers. You'll get to connect with the community. There's so many shared resources and lots of information that comes through that program. So I'm going to put a link in the chat if that's okay, or up on the screen. I don't know, probably in the chat, that has information for the next Boots to Business. And if I can support anyone and being able to connect with local or state programming as they're building out their business, please let me know. So, Rick, thank you so much for having me. I'm just a couple minutes over, but I'm so
No,
grateful to be here to share, and I'm so grateful for everyone on the call. So, thank you for your time and your service. How can I answer questions?
So I'm going to tell you, first of all, Holly, what a great presentation, because you brought marketing down to I'm not going to say in a negative way, but you brought it to our level where we understand, and where you're not talking about getting marketing research that's going to cost us $100,000. We're not Domino's, we're not McDonald's trying to put a location in the middle of New York City or something. You brought it
Yeah.
to terms that we can deal with. I love the way you talked about how you can market that. Your slide where you had all of the jars the same. How do we differentiate ourselves? You remember when we first talked, and I talked about what's my story in selling the beef. It's all about, you guys are making a product. You guys are producing, you're growing a product. And when you're watching those cucumbers grow, or when you're watching that corn grow, you feel that in you, and you feel that your corn or your product is the absolute best. And so when you take it to the market, and all of a sudden you're at a market or you're at a street corner, and you have to be able to tell your story, why your corn is the best. You know, talk about your why. Not that you do it, talk about your why. Why do I grow this corn? Because I have 3 little kids, and I want to make sure that they're getting the best healthy product that we can supply my kids to grow healthy. Don't be afraid to tell your story. The one question I wanted to ask you a question, Holly. So you talked about, going to the farmers market and stuff, and making signs, posters, or things like that. I was thinking of Cherie, and thinking, do you think if you brought a box of donuts, I know if you had donuts, I would stop at your booth every time, so I had to ask you, do you think that might be a selling tactic to get people over at your booth?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably stop at your booth too if there was especially an apple cider donut. I'm crazy for those. I think it has to fit into your business model, to be honest. When we talk a lot about sampling, so sampling gives the opportunity for customers to come over and they try your product and they get to talk to you and they get to hear your story. As long as you can get that engagement from them, that's what we want, is that engagement. So whatever, if it's sampling a donut, or it's, showing a recipe you just made from the product that you just had, or some ingredients that you're sourcing or growing, or it's fresh cuts of cheese, or anything that you want to do. As long as you're getting the opportunity to turn that short interaction into a longer engagement that's building that relationship, then it's totally worth it. I think, go for it. And as long as your business model includes that sort of sampling part. But all of these actions that you do, even from the emails to the calls to the, stopping by and visiting with people, we want to just make sure that we're being thoughtful of how we're going to turn that into a sale. How do I take someone who wants to try my fresh fruit smoothie and turn it into them buying something? So as long as you can connect those dots, then, sample away.
I love the way you talked about relationships. It's establishing that relationship. I sell sides of beef, and I have my repeat customers every single year. And it's because of the relationship. And you hit it right on the head when you talked about that. You have to get out there, and you have to have that consumer confident that what they're buying is the best that they're going to get. And
Hmm.
I know, veterans, you out there, you guys believe in that. You guys believe in that. That's the perfect picture there, Holly. This gentleman is out there, basically shouting to the world, come buy my product because it's the best on the market. Holly, I can't thank you enough for your presentation. It was great. we're lucky to have you, and I appreciate you. So thank you very much,
you.
Holly.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
So guys, we're wrapping up another webinar session. We'll be closing in on 2 years. So we'll be having probably another one in November. I'm thinking November or the first week of December. We haven't discussed it with our task force yet. We appreciate you. We do this for one reason only, and that's you. It's created by veterans, for veterans. Our task force, what they do behind the scenes is just beyond incredible. We can't do it without you guys registering. But I want to set that challenge out there that I said at the beginning. Don't be an ordinary farmer or rancher. I want you to become an extraordinary farmer and rancher. You guys served your country valiantly. You served your country honorably. We ask you now to serve your country again, to come into our agriculture community and serve with that same dignity and success that you did while you were active duty. Come serve us again and help feed America and help feed the world. I thank you all for your service. I thank you guys for everything that you guys do. God bless you all, and God bless America. Thank you.